Nicole Kidman just broke her silence, and her words were chilling. "I'm done pretending." That's what she reportedly told a close friend right before officially filing for divorce from Keith Urban. And that single sentence has fans convinced we're finally hearing the real truth behind Hollywood's most shocking $325 million split. For nearly 20 years, Nicole and Keith sold the world a fairy tale. Red carpets, love songs, and interviews filled with laughter. But what if it was all just a performance? What if the perfect couple everyone envied was quietly falling apart behind the scenes? Tonight, we're going inside the real story behind Nicole Kidman's divorce, the warning signs fans missed, the heartbreaking custody details, and the brutal reality that pushed Nicole to finally say, enough. And trust me, once you see the full picture, this doesn't look like just another celebrity breakup. It looks like a woman finally walking away from a role she's been forced to play for nearly 2 decades. When Nicole Kidman and Keith Urban first met back in 2005, it felt like fate. She was still healing from her painful divorce from Tom Cruise, a split that left her publicly humiliated and privately heartbroken. He was the Australian country star taking over Nashville, charming, humble, and just edgy enough to make him irresistible. They met at a G'day LA event, and by 2006 they were married in a romantic ceremony in Sydney, surrounded by A-list guests, paparazzi, and fans lining the streets. For a woman who'd just come out of a relationship that felt more like a contract than a romance, Keith seemed like redemption, and for a while, that's exactly what it was. Nicole often said Keith brought peace into her life. He'd write songs about her, dedicate performances to her, and gush about how she saved him. But what fans didn't see was the pressure building underneath, because right from the start, their marriage had a built-in fracture. Just 4 months after they got married, everything came crashing down. Keith Urban checked into rehab for drug and alcohol addiction. Nicole was blindsided. She had just married him, and now she was watching her new husband spiral. She staged an intervention and made it clear. If he wanted their marriage to survive, something had to change. And change it did. Not just emotionally, but legally. Because that's when their now infamous prenup clause kicked in. Reports at the time claimed their prenuptial agreement had a specific condition. If Keith ever relapsed, Nicole could walk away and take everything. But if the marriage ended under normal circumstances, Keith would walk away with an $11.4 million payout. To most people, that sounds like a fortune, but compared to Nicole's estimated $250 million fortune, it was barely a dent. And that clause, now known in Hollywood gossip circles as the cocaine clause, shows just how much Nicole wanted to protect herself. After the chaos of her divorce from Tom Cruise, she wasn't about to get burned again. From day one, Nicole had one rule. She'd give her heart, but she'd protect her freedom. For the next 19 years, Nicole and Keith built the illusion of perfection. Every red carpet was a love story. Every interview was pure chemistry. Fans called them the real deal, the couple that made Hollywood believe in marriage again. But behind closed doors, the cracks were starting to show. Keith's touring schedule had him away for over 200 days a year. Nicole was in Nashville raising their daughters, Sunday and Faith, while juggling a stacked filming schedule that took her from Australia to Europe to Los Angeles. At first, it worked. They'd talk about how much they cherished time apart because it made their reunion sweeter. But insiders say that was code for something else: emotional distance. Nicole was tired of feeling like she was doing it all alone. The parenting, the house, the emotional labor, while Keith lived the high of touring life. And when you look back at their interviews, you can almost hear the exhaustion hidden in Nicole's words. She once said, "Marriage isn't about perfection. It's about love, forgiveness, and showing up." But by 2025, even she couldn't pretend they were still showing up for each other. The breaking point came in mid-2025. They had just celebrated their 19th wedding anniversary in June, posting smiling photos and loving captions. But less than 2 months later, Keith had quietly signed their permanent parenting plan, agreeing that Nicole would have primary custody of the kids. Think about that for a second. He signed a document giving her the girls for 306 days per year, while he'd see them for just 59. That's not a split between equals. That's one parent admitting they've already been absent. By September 30th, Nicole officially filed for divorce in Nashville, citing irreconcilable differences. And while that phrase sounds polite, the details were anything but. In one line of the filing, Nicole reportedly wrote the words that sent shockwaves through Hollywood: "I can't pretend anymore." Those 4 words, "I'm done pretending," hit harder than any scandal. Because Nicole wasn't just talking about her marriage. She was talking about the entire performance, the public smiles, the interviews, the family image. For years, she carried the role of the perfect wife, the forgiving mother, the woman who could handle everything with grace. But when the cameras stopped rolling, she was living a very different life. One built around Keith's career, Keith's schedule, Keith's choices. Friends say she reached a point where she realized she was living a script written for someone else. And that's when the pretending stopped. She wasn't angry. She was just done. When a Hollywood couple worth $325 million splits, things get complicated fast. They owned 11 luxury properties across the globe, a Nashville mansion, a Manhattan apartment, a farmhouse in Australia, and more. Their real estate portfolio alone was worth $56 million. Nicole reportedly fought for the properties that meant the most to her Sydney estate, her New York apartment, while Keith focused on Nashville, where his career is rooted. But thanks to that ironclad prenup, there was no financial tug of war. Nicole walked away with the majority of her wealth untouched. Keith's payout was already prearranged, and though he'll continue earning from his music catalog and tours, the financial gap between them is massive. And let's be real, this wasn't just a breakup, it was a business separation. Nicole had been preparing for this outcome since 2006. Custody was never going to be simple. Nicole and Keith share 2 teenage daughters, Sunday Rose, now 17, and Faith Margaret, 14. According to court documents, Nicole will have them for more than 10 months of the year. There's no mention of child support, no public battle. But the paperwork says more than any interview ever could. Nicole was always the present parent, Keith was the touring one. And now that reality is reflected in black and white. 306 days with mom, 59 with dad. It's calm on paper, but emotionally, that number says it all. Publicly, Keith Urban has kept quiet, but those close to him say the divorce hit hard. He's thrown himself into work, continuing his High and Alive world tour, performing in packed arenas, smiling on stage. But insiders say when the lights go out, the reality hits him. Keith's always been open about his struggles with addiction and mental health, and sources close to the tour have said he's been keeping busy to stay distracted. It's unclear if he saw the divorce coming. Some insiders say he thought they were just going through another rough patch. Others claim he'd already accepted they'd grown apart. Either way, the image of the confident, carefree country star has faded, replaced by a man trying to find his footing again. Meanwhile, Nicole seems more powerful than ever. Her first public appearance after the split, at the Amphar Gala in Dallas, said everything without saying a word. She looked radiant, calm, and totally in control. She presented an award, smiled for cameras, and made zero mention of Keith. That silence wasn't cold, it was strategic. It was Nicole reclaiming her narrative. For nearly 20 years, her identity was tied to her marriage. Now, she's finally stepping into her own story again. She's back to filming major projects, producing her own shows, and, according to sources, working on a memoir that will cover everything from her early career to the emotional cost of being a Hollywood wife. So, what's the real reason this marriage ended? It wasn't infidelity. It wasn't scandal. It was something simpler, and maybe sadder. Keith chose his career. Nicole chose her family. And over time, those choices pulled them in opposite directions. When one person's life is constant motion, tours, rehearsals, stages, and the other's is about roots, home, and stability, something eventually gives. Nicole reportedly told a close friend, "I just couldn't raise our daughters alone anymore." And that, right there, sums it up. Hollywood's reaction to the split was immediate and divided. Some insiders claimed everyone saw it coming. Others were genuinely shocked, saying they thought Nicole and Keith were the one couple who'd make it. But across the board, there's one thing people agree on. Nicole handled it like a pro. No messy interviews, no public meltdowns, no back and forth drama, just grace. Even co-stars who've worked with her for decades say this version of Nicole, grounded, quiet, unapologetic, is the most confident they've ever seen her. And while she's speaking out in her own way, Nicole's made one thing clear. She won't publicly attack Keith. Their divorce agreement reportedly includes a non-disparagement clause, meaning neither can badmouth the other in interviews or on social media. So while tabloids are desperate for a quote, Nicole's silence speaks louder than any words ever could. She doesn't need to tear him down to move on. She's already won by walking away. It's also impossible to ignore how much this story mirrors her past. Back in 2001, when Nicole divorced Tom Cruise, she not only lost her marriage, she lost custody of her adopted kids, Isabella and Connor. That trauma haunted her for years. So when it came to Keith, she made sure history wouldn't repeat itself. That's why the custody split is so symbolic. This time, Nicole kept what mattered most. As of now, Nicole's focusing on her daughters, her career, and rediscovering who she is outside of marriage. And Keith, he's reportedly renting a home in Nashville, taking time off between tour dates, and trying to rebuild. Sources close to both say there's no hate, just sadness. Two people who once saved each other, now learning to live apart. At the end of the day, Nicole Kidman's story isn't about revenge or money. It's about freedom. When she said, "I'm done pretending," it wasn't just a breakup statement. It was an awakening. For almost 20 years, she lived a version of love that looked perfect to everyone else, but felt empty to her. And walking away, that wasn't failure. It was self-respect. Because sometimes the most powerful thing you can say isn't, "I love you." It's, "I'm done pretending." Anyway, this concludes today's video. Be sure to subscribe to LoafTube for future celebrity videos, and turn on that post notification bell so you don't miss out on any future uploads. Until then, see you in the next one.